Happy 19th of November, happy 20th anniversary to Half-Life, happy celebrations to the seminal game that inspired every game beyond it in at least one way. Wow, the 19th of November was a pretty jam-packed day for epic gamers like us. We got the release of Artifacts. Well, at least Valve did something magical to commemorate their flagship game. Fuck it, let's talk about 720. So first things first, I think you can all understand that the only way to play Rubik might be delayed a little bit, you know? I mean, one of these days I'm gonna have enough time in between major Dota updates for my other life ambitions. One of these days. I mean, sooner or later I'll be able to start that neo post-rock where I play drummers with a gang of other astronauts. We'd call it space rock, but turns out that's already a thing. But yet again, that's a dream for a future Eric. This Eric has about 1 billion 18-hour days ahead of him to try and churn out, honestly, probably around like 2 hours of only way to play episodes in store for him as he tries to make sense of the absolute mind-bending chaos that is Dota 720. I just realized that I said happy 19th of November because at this exact point it is the 19th of November. But obviously by the time that you're going to watch this, it's not going to be the 19th of November. It would be lucky if it was still November just in general. But I honestly have no idea where to start. I mean, I have no idea how long this breakdown's going to be. I have no idea if I'm still going to be the same person by the end of it. But I guess it's just like ripping off a band-aid, so let's not stall. Oh cool, the map's been reworked. Well that's one section done, moving on. No, okay, kidding. Valve had the luxury of summing it up in 4 words like they're channeling Ember Spirit, but we are the only way to play studio. So me, I have the responsibility to show you the ramifications of those 4 words in that order. The map has been reworked. For the sake of brevity, or to be more specific, for the sake of the race to get this video out before the eventual heat death of the universe, I'll skim and talk broadly about the major parts of the map rework. The first thing that immediately springs up is the fact that an entire layer of elevation has pretty much just been removed in all but the jungle spots around the shrines, which is actually kind of awesome. I've never really been a fan of a game that deliberately brings in an element of frustration or stress as a game mechanic, or at least as a feature. But for I think all of the years that I've ever played Dota, taking high ground has been a painful and arduous and all up not fun part of the game. It was tedious. You already had to fight uphill with the usual lack of vision and with the defending team having 180 degrees with, you know, which to target you from. But to make it all worse, you were pushed into this choke point of low ground because it was a high ground and then you went down the steps to get back up the steps, you know, like the entire way except for mid. Back before 720, every side lane, Radiant and Dire had a trough between the tier 2 tower, but before high ground, and at least a concerted effort was made to grit your teeth and endure being funneled into that choke point of stress and frustration, you just wouldn't be able to take high ground. It's not fun fighting into sniper shrapnel or tinker march of the machines, but at least with 720, it's not as frustrating. It's only a quality of life fix, and any change that makes the game more fun for all is a good change. With that said, because of a lack of elevation on those side lanes at all, the couple of jungle camps that are elevated are now probably the safest neighborhood to build a house and raise kids. Good school district, just don't let them fraternize with those dirty kobolds. I truly don't have any idea where you'd want to be putting wards nowadays, but I can imagine that there's probably no need to put them in the jungle defensively, as with the high ground advantage that you now have, you can already see any gank attempts on you long before they're aware that you're there. Honestly, I've never really been the best when it comes to warding, so put them in range of the river runes like our ancestors have always done and leave well enough alone, eh? Speaking of river runes though, there's a new one. And I wonder what you guys have to say about it, because I think it might be quite different to my thoughts. To get everyone in the loop, the Dire top bounty rune has been shifted dramatically and actually placed on the river at the base of 2 staircases that take you up to the elevation of the entire Dire top lane. This is clearly a major buff to Radiant, right? I mean, they already held an at least 7% higher win rate than their Dire counterparts. I mean, clearly, they now have vision of the rune from miles away, from their Radiant staircase away. There's absolutely no threat involved in checking if the bounty rune is there or not. But that's not what bounty runes are for. You gain no gold from simply observing its presence. You have to pick it up. And that, right there, is why it's a Dire buff. Now, I know what you're saying, but Eric, it was already good for Dire and bad for Radiant where it was, on the high ground. Dire already had vision to see if it was there or not, and Radiant had to go out of their way to try and walk up next to it to get vision of it to see if it was there. And yes, on that I would absolutely agree, but there is a fascinating psychological phenomenon that you can experience when you can literally see the reward. The confirmation that it exists is enough to make your mind go, oh, it hasn't been taken, therefore it won't be taken. No Dire are nearby, because if they were nearby, they would have already taken it. It's irrational now with me speaking it, and it's irrational to think in game also, but just try and tell me that you don't think the exact same thing every time you see that untouched bounty rune there. This is why it's good for Dire. You can also for some reason ward in these pits, which is extremely beneficial for reconnaissance. And what I actually mean by that is that it's needlessly causing future arguments for right after a support misclicks and puts one right in there. Because why would these pits have warding capabilities? No other pits have ever had that. On the flip side though, because that pit has warding capabilities, this giant rock in a pretty awesome thoroughfare also has the ability to be rewarded. You gotta take the good with the bad. I mean, until both are patched out completely. And of course, it wouldn't be an only way to play map analysis without us jumping into the Hammer map editor and flying around. Oh, would you look at how stubby these creep camp bounding boxes are. You know what that means. It's just a shame, really. As much as these map changes are awesome, they're Dota. It's not a Half-Life thing. It's still not a Half-Life thing. 20 years on, and that game is still being admired, and that's nothing to scoff at. It's amazing. I hope that when I turn 20 in a few years, I would be able to look back at the things I've inspired like Half-Life can. But Valve gave nary a peep about it. All we got were these measly map changes. Whoop-de-doo! Slightly raised plateaus. No anniversary acknowledgement, no special event, no ARG... Wait a second. Half-Life took place in the Black Mesa research facility. Mesa? A mesa is a flat-topped hill with steep sides. Oh my god, it's happening! Let's look for more clues. Oh god, that was one bullet point. Okay, let's speed it up with, deniers no longer give the deniee a portion of the XP, but they do now give him gold. Can you say Shadowfiend and Bloodseeker Renaissance? Heroes who already benefit from denying as much as possible anyway. I mean, you can just look at Dota Buff to see all heroes with the highest deny rate. Shadowfiend, Templar Assassin, Morphling, and no, I know what you're thinking, but I already tried it. Clockwork's cogs don't give Clockwork free gold, as much as they totally should, right? I mean, just having the ability to just spawn creeps that give you gold. TP scrolls no longer take up a whole item slot, which is kind of sad, kind of good. I don't really know. It's easier to, you know, play as a whole, but there was always some finesse in the decision between having a TP scroll in your 6th item slot versus splurging and getting that new item. But then again, to be fair, this was probably, you know, ruined as soon as backpacks came along. Now, instead of it, you know, being finesse and an actual decision that you have to make, it's just assumed that you'll always have a TP scroll. The TP scroll is always going to be in your inventory. You're never going to be 9 slotted so much that you can't fit a TP scroll. So I guess at that point, yeah, I'll agree. A TP scroll being in the backpack and then moving it into the 6 item slot was just tedious because you had to wait for 6 seconds, and I mean, yeah, you know, honestly, this is a buff to any late game hero who prefers other types of boots that aren't boots of travels, like anyone who buys Greaves. But we're not going to really talk about boots yet, not for a wee while yet. But now you don't have to get 2 of 6 item slots filled by boots, Greaves and travels, and can instead always just have a TP on hand. It's kind of lame, but what do I know? Also, because TP scroll and boots of travels have an independent cooldown with only one just adding plus 10 seconds to the other, it means that you can teleport in and then after 10 seconds teleport to another lane, which is kind of Ember Spirit's thing. So, is he shit now? Daily bonus heroes are gone! Honestly, awesome. Bringing back randoming, it should have never left. You can also have more confidence in randoming too. It's now kind of hard to say that you shouldn't random all the time, although people are going to try and tell you that. I was already saying before all this that you should random all the time. Random every game. Chaos in the streets. Hey man, I mean, at least your games aren't boring, right? But honestly, the fact that randoming ignores your 25 least played heroes just means that you have the ability to random a hero you know you have played before. This is both good and bad. It's bad in the sense that back in the day, randoming was the official way to decide which new hero you were going to learn. You randomed, you landed on a hero you'd never played before, and you pretty much just jumped in the deep end with it. You learn how to play that hero immediately, or you lose. It was fun. But with this type of randoming, you are guaranteed to land on a hero that you could probably play along with the mangoes and all the bonuses that you get from the now removed daily hero bonus thing, in theory. In practice, you might absolutely suck at your most played hero. Hey man, it happens. Your most played is Lone Druid. You've got a 30% win rate with Lone Druid because everybody has a 30% win rate with Lone Druid. Well, hey man, at least you've got some mangoes to add to that loser smoothie. And of course, randoming can now only be done for the first 2 heroes of each team, which I'll reluctantly say is a good idea. We've all been known to be alt-tabbed watching that hot boy toy streamer to then come back and find that we've got 5 seconds left to pick the last hero of the draft, and you weren't paying attention and you have no idea what to counterpick. Hey man, randoming was the way to go back then, but for everyone's sake, maybe it's a good idea to remove that specific part of it. TP scrolls can be cancelled by root. Okay, awesome, but beyond that, every old root ability can no longer cancel channels other than TP scroll. Does that mean that Enigma's back on the menu, boys? The answer to Enigma, when you didn't have a Vengeful Spirit, was, you know, to have a guy happily volunteer getting Helm of the Dominator. That is in a Bizarro world where he wasn't already going to get it anyway. But that's impossible. And then of course for that Dominator carrier to dominate a Dark Troll Summoner, specifically for its ensnare. won't work anymore, friend. Cleave damage is now, honestly, where it probably should have been the entire time for simplicity's sake. It was always that weird, hard to explain thing of dealing damage that was physical, but wasn't also reduced by armor, which is supposed to reduce physical, and you know how it goes. So this basically means not much. You didn't really have a plan around not buying armor, because Cleave ignores it anyway, because you're rarely, if ever, being hit by Cleave when they're trying to kill you. And if they're trying to kill a teammate that isn't you, to have you get splashed by Cleave as a collateral, they're probably clearly going for a guy who they deem is more important to kill than you anyway. And again, does this mean Ember's bad? For the longest time, I noted to myself how much BKB kind of does less and less as every ability gets more and more powerful on account of the constant power creep. The fastest way to make an ability better is to make it go through Magic Community, but it got to a point where it was considered odd for a spell to not go through Magic Community. And 720, it seems like they're going out of their way to reverse all of that and make Black King bars great again. The big ones are Bloodseeker's Blood Rage, Lone Druid's Bears and Tangle, Tidehunter's Anchor Smash damage reduction aspect, and of course all of the roots mentioned earlier. Black King bar is understandably slightly more expensive to compensate, but by like 5 cents, so that's fine by me. Poison Sting being dispellable is a dream though, but a nightmare awaits when we talk about the fact that with Strong Dispel, Hex is also dispellable. Oh, did you hear that? I hear something in the shadows dancing. And then just to rattle off the miscellaneous changes. Day-Night cycle increased from 4 minutes to 5 minutes. Scan no longer ignores units in the Roshan pit. You'd be amazed to see how little this will change. I think it's more that IceFrog felt bad watching thousands and thousands of wasted scans that were put directly on the Rosh pit, that he just sort of decided what the heck and allowed it to actually work. Max attack speed is now 700, meaning that Ursa and Wind Ranger have yet again been given major buffs. Keep in mind that they can reach max attack speed with nearly no items, so it's pretty much just overall a damage and proc chance increase. It also ties into Alchemist's ultimate beast mode, as well as I hear a certain pair of ogres with a certain golden glove. And maybe a certain fish boy too, but we'll get to that soon. Wow, I just went on about aura items and the joke that every single aura item has a range of 900, and bam, the next update it's immediately changed. As the specific Patreon pledges of my audience, you guys already know all about my thoughts on aura items. Now all of a sudden, Radiance has more range, mech, Vlads, all sorts, and it's not just a case of 300 extra range, even though that's what's written, because this is a radius of a circle we're talking about here. The area of influence we have with an aura of 1200 versus 900 is crazy. A 900 radius is 2,540,000 units. A 1200 radius is 4,520,000. Nearly double. Mad, am I right? I hate it, and I can't escape it. I mean, come on, man. Why can't the subjects I liked in school come up when talking about Dota? When do I get to make an analogy about home ec, about cooking scones? At least I know something about that. Moving on, reading added a new sound that gets played when all of a team's barracks are destroyed makes me think IceFrog's been watching some Todd Howard video recordings. Or Todd VODs, as the cool kids call them.
And you can design for this. How people feel when they have accomplished something themselves in your game. There's this feeling of pride that nothing else in entertainment can give you. And you can design for this moment. Even simple things, puzzle games. My favorite sort of ego-stroking design to make you feel great moment in any game is Peggle. Everybody here played Peggle? Have you finished a level? If you haven't, all levels end this way. I'm pretty great. I think I'll play another level.
Basically, it just offers a satisfying sound to go along with the plain and simple text telling you you have mega creeps. For those of you unfortunate enough to have heard that sound when it's your team getting those megas, this is what it sounds like.
The other fella's been ragged, only making it look like we got engaged with mega creeps.
Satisfying, right? But not as satisfying as IceFrog finally letting your teammates know when you kill an observer ward. Finally. You'll notice in the official text it says allies, whereas I specifically said teammates. And that's deliberate. But that's it for general. Alright, part 1 of 99 down, time for a scone break.